Cole Palmer. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. 4 goals and no returns. The XG was there, but it wasn't meant to be. Let's look ahead, though, to game week 28. It's not too far away. We've got the FA Cup this weekend, which will give us a big indication as to the game week 33 doubles. So welcome to the GW28 YouTube show. Hope you guys are good. Let's get on with my 28 early thoughts. We're going to start with the fixture ticker because this is going to indicate who blanks in 29. We can see the 4 teams blanking there in Liverpool, Newcastle, Villa and Palace. So you've got a big decision to make if you've not already made it. And by now you should know. And I'm sure most of you do. Are you free hitting in 29? Are you navigating 29 in free transfers? And if so, who are the players from those 4 teams that you're happy to sell? Most have offloaded their Aston Villa players. Morgan Rogers, shouldn't have done that. I benched him. Shouldn't have done that. He scored against Palace. Newcastle players are such a hard sell. If you've got Isak, you'll have money tied up in him. If you've got Lewis Hall, I don't think you particularly want to flog him either. I've got both of those guys. And obviously your Liverpool assets, no one's looking to sell. Crystal Palace too. If you own Crystal Palace players, boy, you're not selling them. They've got Ipswich in 28, Southampton in 30. That is one of the reasons why I like the idea of free hitting in 29, because you can make sure you've got 3 Palace. And that's what I'm about to show you that I'm going to do this episode. Of course, we can see in 32, Newcastle have the double game week, as do Crystal Palace. That's confirmed, locked in. Now, this is filtered by fixture difficulty. And right at the top of the ticker, the best fixtures out there are Wolves. And that is why Cunha was the most bought-in player of the game week so far, of game week 27, I should say. He did blank, which is the curse of the most transferred-in player. But they're absolutely there for the taking. And Bournemouth right at the top of the ticker there, still with very good fixtures. We're going to talk about Bournemouth too. Guys, if you're enjoying the channel or this episode, show your appreciation by hitting that like button. But I'd love you to subscribe to the channel as well. So really appreciate you hitting that sub button with the notification bell. So look, let's have a look at how I am set. Before I even consider transfers, my big decision before I even look at transfers is who am I benching, right? At the moment, I've got Rodgers and Hall on the bench. I could very easily play Hall instead of Mikalenko. I've already got Pickford in goal there. I could very easily bench, say, a Dango and play a Rodgers. Rodgers away at Brentford, I kind of fancy for a goal, you know, but the Champions League distraction is real for Aston Villa. And I have to remember that. So at the moment, we've got 1 free transfer. We've got 3.4 million in the bank. For those listening on podcast, it's Mikalenko, Trent, Manoz, and Pickford in goal. Palmer, Dango, Enzo, robbed of Enzo points. Was it 9 chances created, I think it was, against Southampton. Salah, Mateta, Cunha, and Isak. On the bench, Rodgers and Hall, who I like. Rico Lewis needs to get in the bin, and Fabianski. So, could do this. I'm going to be using a transfer, guys. I feel a need to get three Palace players in my team. Now, I want to talk about Dango as someone I could either bench or sell, right? The version 1 we saw was him in the team, but I love to see substitution order, and I love to see where my players are in the pecking order if they are getting early subbed. And Dango, we know Evanilson is back now. Evanilson will be good for a start, I would imagine, by game week 28. Does that push Dango out wide, or does that bench Dango? Well, Cliver, off the back of what he just did, he's staying in the team. Semenyo's staying in the team. So we're going to have Cliver at second striker, Semenyo on the left, and on the right is between Tavernier and Brooks. I can't see Dango starting, which is a shame. Let's see how things look in the FA Cup. Bournemouth do play in the FA Cup. I think they've got Wolves. That'll be a good test for Evanilson minutes. I expect he'll get 60 and then probably be pretty damn good for a start in the Premier League. So Dango, with a heavy heart, many have just brought him in, could be on the chopping block. Interesting that it was Cliver that stayed on the pitch and Dango that got hooked. I wondered if Cliver might fall down the pecking order, but then he goes and scores a worldie goal on Tuesday night, and that surely keeps him in the team for a bit longer. So I'd have to say Cliver is above Dango Atara in the pecking order, and it's slightly concerning for those that have just bought Dango. So with that in mind, I could bench him or I could sell him. This is still 3.4 million in the bank. Version 2 of my team with Rodgers in the 11 instead of Dango. I think he's going to be a sell with a very, very heavy heart. But let's have a look at my options. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Crystal Palace. Now, they absolutely deserve our attention. The results in February were pretty useful, right? They had 4 wins and 1 defeat in February, and we're certainly seeing Oliver Glasner's men absolutely turning on at the right time. They did this the second half of last season, if you remember. Mateta was amazing. Eze was good. Glasner was amazing. Second half of last season, they turned it on. We're seeing the same again. They beat United in the Premier League. We saw them win 2-0 in the FA Cup against Doncaster, albeit. They did lose to Moyes in the Premier League on the 15th of Feb, which is really interesting because Everton were really lucky. It was a bit of a smash and grab. Palace outplayed them on every part. Enough for me to back Palace against Fulham. The manager bounce, the manager bonus. Many of us got that. So they beat Fulham, and then they've gone and I think the most impressive result so far was what they did to Aston Villa. They smashed them out the park. It was a very, very convincing win. So if you're on free hit 29, you can make sure you get 3 Palace. If you're not, I still think you can buy a Palace player and bench him in 29 because the fixtures are so good. And we have to remember the fixtures. I'm going to go back to the ticker. I mean, Crystal Palace there, if you're on free hit or not, if you can navigate, if you can jump on a Mateta for Ipswich at home and then Southampton away, and then if you're wildcarding in 31, that's fine. Or if you're not wildcarding, you get a double game week in 32. Triple Palace is a must. Mateta is top on my radar. And he's in my team. He would be top of my radar. But absolutely, we should be looking at Daniel Munoz, Eberechi Eze, Ismaila Sarr. Now, this is the average position map against Villa. This isn't actually a normal average position for Crystal Palace. Usually they have a lot more of the ball, and Daniel Munoz is sky high on that right-hand side, as in the most advanced man on the pitch. He was more disciplined. He still got an assist. Ismaila Sarr looked great. Mateta links so well and is always in the box at the right time. And then Eze had a really good game. So between Eze and Sarr, we have to compare them. I just want to go back to that Aston Villa game, though, because it was so convincing. Villa haven't been the best defensively, right? But Crystal Palace, we can see Daniel Munoz, most passes, most XG chain Eze, most progressive passing Mateta, and most progressive passing received Sarr, and most centrality Eze. Between all of those things, they're the FPL options. This isn't an FPL site between the posts, and they've mentioned the 4 names: Munoz, Eze, Mateta, Sarr. I'm going to chuck Henderson into the mix as a 5th name. So this is what they did versus Palace. I mean, it was 19 shots to 6. 4-1 was a fair result. The XG total was 3.79. They scored 4 goals. Bang on. Villa's XG 0.71. They scored 1 goal. About right. But look at the Crystal Palace shots. 19 shots, only 5 of them outside the box. So we're looking at 14 shots inside the box. And look, 6-7 of them within 8 to 10 yards. And 4-5 of them, big chances. If Crystal Palace carry on like this, they're going to have a lot of 3-goal games, especially against Ipswich and Southampton. You could see 3, 4, 5. And if that's the case, doesn't matter if you're free hit 29 or not, you'll want to be buying Crystal Palace players. So this is where I'm at. Eze and Sarr are both brilliant. I just prefer Eze for consistency moving forward. I know it's Sarr that's just banged. I know Sarr is cheaper. I've got money to spend. I've got my assistant manager money. Eze comes in and I get Ipswich. I free hit in 29 anyway, and then I get Southampton. It's the 3 best Crystal Palace players for me. This still leaves me with 1.8 million in the bank, 0 transfers, and it's Dango Atara, by the way, that would be moving on. Tempted, absolutely tempted. But how do Eze's numbers stack up when we compare them both with Dango? But also, I want to compare him with Ismaila Sarr. And look, then I get to keep Rodgers, which actually I quite like. Everyone sold Rodgers. Rodgers is a good keep. So Dango versus Eze. This is season long. It has to be said, Eze's had more minutes. When we look at the creative points, Eze's there. Total assists, chances created in blue. BPS, Eze wins out. Because of all of his creative numbers, he's great in the BPS. But purely on goals, shots in the box, the XG, the penalty area touches, the big chances, Dango's been really good. But if he's not in the 11, it's irrelevant. So I actually prefer the idea of comparing Eze with Sarr because I'm going to get triple Palace, guys. My big question is it Eze or Sarr? And then is it an attacker or is it a defender? Because I do have Mateta and Munoz. Remember, I could go double defense. If we compare Eze in red and Sarr in blue, now, guys, season long, there are 5 minutes separating these players. Pretty good comparison, this. This is a bang-on fair test. This is from the Fantasy Football Scout app. Comparing them season long. Who wins out? There's not much in it. I expected Eze to be performing pretty much better in every metric other than like goals and shots, maybe. But the big chances created. Sarr is up there. The penalty area touches. He is winning in a lot of metrics. So I definitely have to consider Sarr. He does feel like a streaky player. He's just gone 9 games without a goal and then scored a brace. Let's see how they look in the FA Cup. And I'll definitely be monitoring that, because for me, I've like the jury's still out, and they've got Millwall in the FA Cup. I expect they'll both play. In red, though, we can see Eze winning out for bonus, for goal attempts, for chances created, and for total assists. It's a tough one to call, given the price difference. Many would say go Sarr. If money's not an issue, maybe it is Eze. And I just feel like Eze had such a good end of the season last time out, if he can stay fit. And it is a big if, because we've seen with Eze, like injuries have been a bit of a concern for him, and he's been in and out. And maybe that's why his numbers feel skewed a little bit. Like, yes, he's played 89 and 90 last time out. Before that, it was 45, 29. And then he had a few 70, 75, 77. And I just think he's been carrying a knock for quite a while, whereas we've seen a very fit and functioning Ismaila Sarr. So Eze versus Sarr is an interesting one that will go down to the wire for me. I think I'm going to be here in a week's time doing my team section video saying I'm buying one of these two players, but there is another option. And guys, if you are enjoying the show, please do hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for supporting. I hope you've enjoyed this and you've had a good game week 27. But of course, we're already looking forward to game week 28, right? So the other option is I keep Dango and Rodgers. I could start Dango or Rodgers, whoever, if I think Dango's going to be benched. And I invest at the back. And I actually don't look at a defender. I look at a goalkeeper. Now, Henderson has been impressive of late. And Henderson gives me a 2 goalkeeper option. Between Pickford and Henderson, I know I'm with my chip strategy, I need to bench boost before a wild card. I'm probably bench boosting in 33, wildcarding in 34. 33 will be a double. Now, whether Palace double or not in 33, they get a double in 32 in good fixtures. Pickford's fixtures aren't brilliant, and I've got Mykolenko. I don't really like double Everton defence, especially moving forward. After game week 30, guys, they have a rough run of fixtures. I'm happy to offload Pickford, but because he's a starter and Fabianski isn't, I'm just going to probably get 2 goalkeepers, and then 34 when I wildcard, I just go with a set and forget. So Henderson is a legit option. He's also really cheap at 4.5 million. I don't mind the price point there. And when we look at them both, we can rotate between them. First, let me just show you the fixtures so far in Feb. We've seen a clean sheet versus Fulham. We saw a clean sheet versus Doncaster. We saw a clean sheet versus Man United. In the last 5 games Palace have played, they have kept 3 clean sheets. And what's really interesting here, the other 2 games, they've only conceded 1, and from low XG games. Everton had low XG. Sorry, they conceded 2 to Everton, and they conceded 1 to Villa, and we saw the XG there was 0.7. Very solid defensively in that back 5 shape. Very solid defensively. Remember, it's Mark Gahey, Richards is in for Chalobah, Lacroix, and then you've got Mitchell and Daniel Munoz. It is a back 5, although Munoz especially is given a huge amount of license to get forward. If I go with those 2 goalkeepers, though, how do they rotate? Well, we can see here, we've got Crystal Palace a sort of third of the way up, and then we've got Everton right at the bottom of the ticker. And actually, they would be last in the ticker if it wasn't for the next couple of games. So I would probably be playing, well, I'll be playing Henderson versus Ipswich, 29 Pickford, obviously, and I'd be free hitting anyway. Southampton for Palace, so I'd play in 30. And then look, in 31 and 32, Pickford's got Arsenal and Forest. Like, I'm not playing Pickford until I bench boost. So I would get Henderson for all of these fixtures, Ipswich, Southampton, Brighton, and then the double in 32. It's not bad. And then in 33, I get to play them both. I could consider selling Pickford for Henderson, think of the money, and then when 33 comes around, I just buy a goalkeeper with a double. I could consider that, because actually, is Pickford at 5 million too much on my bench, knowing he's not going to be playing for the next how many weeks, just to keep him for a bench boost when he might not even double? And that's the thing. I need to see if I think Everton double in 33. And again, a lot of that, we're going to know a lot more about the FA Cup potential doubles after this weekend, which is why no one should be making any early moves. So as things stand, Henderson's front of mind. But I think I prefer the upside pickup in Eze, given the fact the fixtures are so good. Given the fact it's Ipswich and Southampton, sure, they can keep clean sheets and Henderson can get a 6 or 7 pointer. Eze could get double digits. Sarr could get double digits. He did in Gameweek 27 with his brace. They're there for the taking. I've done a lot on Crystal Palace. I want to just focus on a couple of other players and other good picks. Cunha, he's going to be great. If you're not free hitting in 29, you need Cunha in your team. He's got Southampton, whether you're free hit or not. But certainly, if you're not free hitting, he'll be a brilliant pick. Isak, you do not want to be selling him. You do not want to be selling him just to buy him back on wildcard. A lot will consider selling Mo Salah. Again, you'll have money tied up in him. Ask yourself the question, do you really need Erling Haaland? Because some are going to be selling Salah for Haaland. I personally do not love that. Guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you for another video very, very soon. Bye-bye.